Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen. This episode takes us into the diverse musical world of Joseph Mossbridge. We look at how his career began and the fan base he's built from his debut album, Take My Time. Much of this music comes from what he experienced during the pandemic, including having to leave LA, where he was working when March 2020 happened. Joseph's music blends all sorts of styles, including rap, EDM, and pop. We look at how these different sounds come together, and what he's hoping to try out in future releases. We also shine a spotlight on the many people he's worked with to bring Take My Time and other songs to life. He recently performed his first live show in Boston, and I'm sure there's a lot more firsts that we have yet to actually talk about, but joining me is Joseph Mossbridge. Joseph, welcome to the show, man. It's good to talk to you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be on. I'm looking forward to talking about all sorts of fun musical things.
I like that. Me too, man. Me too. All right. I want to start by asking about your first show. So this was back on May 9th. You were performing live at the Jungle in Somerville. What was it like to be on stage?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I think I've been performing in some capacity in different ways throughout most of my life. When I was 9 years old, I wrote this song on the drums, which is not an instrument you normally write songs on, but that was what I played. It was this blues song, and I played it at the talent show, and it was kind of a disaster. Actually, there's a video on YouTube. Don't go try to find it.
I am definitely going to try and find that now.
The music kept falling off the stand, and then my mom ran out in front of all the parents and put it back up, and it was also a weird song. But the point being, that's the first original song technically that I ever wrote. And I think, and I've done other performance things. I was the lead in a musical in high school, and I don't know. I think I've always enjoyed getting up in front of people and doing stuff, to put it simply. And so I wasn't really worried when I did the show about freezing up or anything like that. I was more worried about doing a good show, because I've never done it before. And I realized when I got up there that I didn't really know what to do with my body. I was like, how do I move? How do I move in the right way, and how do I energize people? So it was definitely a good time. It was a huge learning experience for me. And I'm glad that my first show is over.
I get you, man. I get you. The first time can be so hard because there's so much you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So it's hard to even say how do I even approach this thing?
I think the big thing for me was I realized that I think in my head I had this huge unrealistic expectation of crowd surfing and mobs of people for my first show. And then I realized after the show, I'm wait, I actually need to these are just my friends here. I have to kind of bring the energy, and then they can reciprocate, but I can't expect them to be the people who are bringing the energy to the show.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was the biggest lesson I learned, was I have to kind of bring it first.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was the general vibe of the place? Because, of course, shows are back in full effect.
Yeah, I mean, the vibe was really nice. It's great to be able to actually do that. And now I don't have an excuse to hide away and not perform. So definitely it was really nice to just, I just graduated college. It was really nice to be about to graduate college and finally perform for the first time. My music in Boston was just really cool.
Now, your music has this atmospheric EDM hip hop pop vibe to it. That's probably not very specific, but I got a lot of different elements.
A great description, actually.
It's the best I could come up with, actually, because it was very diverse, and I like that. Some of it was more like upbeat, high tempo. Other songs like "Goodbye," for example, or "Take a Drive," they were more chill too. So style wise, you're definitely, I would say, all over the place, which I like. But how do you perform that live?
So basically No, you're right. I love being all over the place, style wise. I think genres are stupid, but I mean they have a purpose, but for my own description of my music, I think it's kind of doesn't apply, kind of. I don't know. Anyway, so what we did live was I had a drummer, my friend Adam Doucette, and no, sorry. My drummer was Harrison. My keyboard player was Adam. Both great musicians. And so they, my songs have a lot of production in them. So basically what I did was I took out the drums and the keyboard part that my friend Adam was playing, and they played that. And then also at the same time, I had the backing track playing the rest. Mainly because I just think it would be pretty much impossible for me to do like an acoustic show, just because for me, my production is, I produce all my music. So my production is so important for like my artistic expression.
Mm-hmm. What other Boston venues do you think you would really want to perform at?
All of them.
Good answer.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. It's interesting timing for me because I'm about to actually move away from Boston and try to move to LA.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. And try to make it. I hate that. I hate everyone goes to LA to try to make it, but
okay. Well, this is like big news. Really, this is big news. What led to this choice to basically move across the country?
most of the people I know in the music industry are in LA. And my biggest creative collaborator on the album, Maria, who I co-wrote 7 of the 9 songs with, she lives in LA. So I just feel like it makes sense to me, and I like LA. So that's kind of why.
Wow. Wow. Now that actually leads to a question I had. Listening to Goodbye, is this all about LA?
Yeah. So the story behind Goodbye is, I had an internship uh, sophomore year of college, which was spring of sophomore year of college, which was spring of 2020. So right when COVID hit. And so I was living in LA for the internship. And on like March 15th or whenever that day was, when the NBA shut down and everything went berserk, I specifically remember that day like super vividly. I was actually shadowing this producer in the studio, and there was a pretty well-known artist like rolling joints on the table that we work on. It was just I like specifically remember that day. And then I remember my boss coming in and being like, yeah, you guys need to go home. And I'm like, okay. And then the next day, literally the next day, my mom called me and she's like, you need to leave LA and just like, my parents live in or my mom and my stepdad live in Northern California. So the next day I drove up, and the song is literally about that day, driving away from LA and being sad about it. And then Maria was genius enough to think we should make it kind of sound like a break, basically personify LA to sound like a breakup song, which I think gives it another meaning and can kind of let more people relate to the song.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good news is now you get to go back to LA. You get to like reconnect there. What was it like out there for you as a young artist?
Well, so at that point, I had not, I feel like fully, I wasn't where I am now, where I'm like, I want to be an artist. At that point, I was like, do I want to be an artist? Do I want to be a producer? I mean, I guess I want to do still both of those things. But I think when I was out there, it was really almost tantalizing. It actually almost like hurt in a way, because I was like, and I was working at this publishing company that had like these massive artists and songwriters coming in every day to the studio. And I worked right outside the studio. And I'm like, I really want to be inside that studio right now, but there's nothing I can do about it, you know? but I just felt so close and yet so far to kind of where I wanted to go, if that makes sense. But overall, great experience for sure.
Nice, nice. And what happened that had you moving out to Boston?
Oh, so I go to Northeastern, or I went to Northeastern, and Northeastern has like this internship program. So which is how I got the internship in LA.
Okay, cool, cool. And did you study music there?
Yeah, so I'm a music industry major, and should have been a songwriting minor and a recording minor, but the classes didn't, like, I couldn't count them for my major and my minor, so I'm not. So that's a bummer, but whatever.
Hey, man, you learn what you learn. Speaking of which, do you feel like you have been more educated just like on your own? Because the vibe I've gotten is that you're like largely self-taught.
Absolutely. I mean, I started producing when I was 14 years old. Actually, that's not even true. The first song I made on a DAW, I was like 9 or 10. And it was titled Album One. And then the other song was titled Album Two. And they're trash. Like they're terrible. As any, like, what you would expect. But uh I kind of forgot about that. And then I started getting into production when I was 14. Like, really, once a friend told me that, like, there's a program that exists where you can, like, basically play all of the instruments. I'm like, what? That's cool. So I started doing that. And so that process, that like very slow process, basically from like the beginning of like eighth grade through all of high school, of making just bad songs, and trying to like releasing them on SoundCloud and all of this stuff. But that's how I learned. And then what school did was it taught me more about the music industry to an extent. But by far the majority of information about making music that I know was like self-taught, or picked up on YouTube videos, or picked up like asking people questions, or watching people make music. It wasn't from school.
I'd like to ask about, as someone who has really grown up with things like Apple Music, Spotify being kind of the norm, how do you approach making a career, like, given that so much of this is out there for like free? The radio being a big deal, then cassettes and CDs and so forth.
I think I'm simultaneously extremely confident in myself and extremely unconfident in myself. So one part of me is like, you make the best music in the world. And the other part of me is like, there's no way you're ever gonna make this work. The odds, like, I'm a music industry major. I understand that the amount of people that want to be artists is so many times greater than the amount of people that can sustainably be an artist. And that you kind of have to be a little bit crazy, or I don't know. It's a large risk to take, to invest all of your time, and money into trying to be an artist and making it as an artist. Like, I'm very aware of that, especially now, because with streaming, you're making so little money. You need to find other ways to make money unless you're massive. So the answer is it's extremely daunting to try to be an artist, but I don't think I would do it unless unless some part of myself truly believed that I could do it, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. All right. Let's talk about moving to LA and making it. Of course, a lot of artists, musicians, filmmakers, even writers go out there because they see it as their big opportunity. What's your perspective on that? Do you see it as this like once in a lifetime chance, or is it more just another area for you?
I don't like thinking of it. I don't think there's a once in a lifetime chance. I think there's many, hopefully there'll be many different opportunities in my life to make it. I do think it's kind of more about, one, moving to a place that is like, has a ton of music people and is, a place where a lot of entertainment happens. And two, I think it's truly just about my own network. Like, I think that if I knew a ton of people that could help me, and like I don't know, Kansas, then I probably wouldn't move to Kansas. But theoretically speaking, it's more about like it's more about like the people that could help me there than like you have to go make it in LA, I guess.
Yeah, that
To an
makes
extent.
yeah
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, I don't see your music catching on in Kansas though. Sorry to say.
Well, hopefully one day.
Yeah, well, I think Kansas needs like people first. There's not a lot of people in Kansas.
That is true.
That's very
I
true.
feel like, but listen, if you're listening to this and you live in Kansas, I appreciate you. And now you can spread my music in Kansas.
Exactly.
So,
And sorry, Kansas. I don't mean to like shit on you guys. I'm sure you're wonderful. It's a wonderful state, I'm sure. Um, I want to ask about your friend Maria because you've talked about her a couple times. How did the two of you meet, and how did you wind up working together as musicians?
yeah. So, Maria and I met when I was interning in LA at this publishing company called Pulse Music Group, which is a pretty big indie publishing company in LA. So we became friends there. And then I went back to Boston to do school. And like a year or so later, I ended up interviewing her for a class project. And the project was to like make a song about somebody else. It was a songwriting class. And so I interviewed her to make a song about her. And the song I made was really bad. But that wasn't like what happened. It was nice because we ended up talking to each other again. And then that made me feel like I knew her a little better and comfortable asking her to just like write one song with me. I'm like, could we try writing a song? Because I never worked with her before. I just had, known her as a friend. So we wrote one song together, which was, I think, Goodbye was the first one we did. And Maria is a great songwriter. And I am really good at writing melodies and not as good at writing lyrics. So, and she's a great lyricist and also great at writing melodies. But what I needed help with was lyrics. So we kind of complemented each other really well. And then I kept being like, hey, can we do another one? Can we do another one? Can we do another one? And she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then surely enough, she wrote 7 of the 9 songs.
Wow. Very cool, man.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, does she also make like her own music?
Yeah. So she's released a few songs on Spotify. She's more about writing for other people though. She's much like farther along in her career than I am. She wrote a song that went viral on TikTok and now it's like 20 million plays on Spotify. So she knows what she's doing, and it's awesome to have someone who's experienced and just a great songwriter working with me.
Mm-hmm. How about your own plans? I mean, like it sounds to me like you're sort of at the beginning of your music career. Do you have any plans in place, or are you just kind of seeing where things take you?
You know, it's interesting because I'm at the beginning of my music career, and yet I've been working hard on music for a long time. I'm definitely seeing where things take me. It's definitely right now, like, I got the album out. Now I'm kind of trying to like, promote it as much as I can. But I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, well, I'm definitely kind of just going to take the opportunities that I get.
You talked about like building out the audience, and certainly yours is pretty good. I mean, you have almost 5,000 followers on Spotify, which
I think you mean monthly listeners,
well,
because I do not have 5. Same, fair enough.
yeah, same difference. I think same difference. But I mean, it's like a sizable like fan base just from like the one album, though. I think.
Yeah, for sure. I've been doing Instagram ads, which have been huge actually, because I have someone who runs them for me who really knows what they're doing, instead of me running them, which would not probably go that well. I think, one of the best parts of this album was bringing together a lot of different people to help make this thing and promote it. And it's interesting to me that like my indie album with a really small budget that mostly came from selling my car still took 20 people to like make. And which is even though I did most of it. And it's crazy how many people it takes to make something. Just because like, oh, I need a friend to play guitar. I need a friend to play piano. I need a mixing engineer. I need a recording engineer. I have Maria songwriting. So it quickly adds up how many people are working on something.
How do you make these contacts?
Mostly just friends, to be honest. I think like my mixing and recording engineer Connor, we just randomly met the first day of orientation at Northeastern, and then kind of were friends ever since. He was the obvious choice for me to record and mix. Marie, like my guitar player on the album, is another friend of mine who's a business major. I mean, just people that I know who are friends who play instruments or do whatever. I try to get them to help me out in any way that I can.
I'm going to actually jump tracks and ask about the cover art because the cover art for this album is absolutely amazing. Who does that?
Yeah, that is true. The cover art is fantastic. I love the cover art of the album. I forgot to mention, so that the person who made the cover art is named Jack Howarth. He's so I found him through so I asked one of the A&Rs at the publishing company, Zach, the publishing company that I worked for in LA. I mean, this is more recent. This is like last summer. So I wasn't working for them anymore. But I was like, do you know anyone who does album art? And he's like, there's this guy new in college. Do you want to like, meet him? And I was like, sure. So we got in touch and talked and we hit it off. And he killed the cover art for the album, especially because I was kind of like, at that point, he'd made the art for the 3 singles. So he knew what the album was about. He knew the vibe. He knew my vibe. And I was basically just like, do what you want. And like, he told me what he was going to do. And I'm like, yeah, I like that. Do it. And then the cover art happened. I was like, wow, this is incredible. So the cover, it just kind of worked out, I guess, really well.
It definitely did, man. It definitely did. So I also want to ask about like kind of the story behind the album. So this was all written, produced, and so forth during COVID, during the pandemic. Kind of reflects on, I think, a lot of like the major elements of that time period. Like you talk about "Goodbye" being basically your like breakup song with LA when COVID first hit. You had to leave,
right.
And then "Take a Drive" being the thing that I think a lot of us did just to like de-stress from the constant, bad news. But what are some of the other things that you kind of like touch upon?
Yeah, good question. First and foremost, this is a breakup album. And I think there's a lot of different themes that kind of happen throughout the album. Yes. So COVID, everyone was depressed. I was depressed. Everyone's just sad. And then this breakup that I had, that I was kind of reflecting upon, and just all the songs kind of ended up, or most of the songs kind of ended up being about that. So I think the album was made over I started making the album at the beginning of COVID. And then it took me almost 2 years to finish it. And it was just all of the things that were kind of happening in the world and going on kind of just influenced the sound and influenced the way that the album ended up being like, I guess. That's basically it. There's a few other little, like my song, I Don't Want to Know, is actually about this really bad Bumble date I went on. And so Maria and I were writing, got together and we were just talking about what was going on in our lives. And I'm like, I went on this terrible Bumble date. And she was like, I was in this terrible session with this artist and I felt trapped. And I was like, I felt trapped on the Bumble date. And then we're like, we should make a song about that. And then that's how that song came to exist. That is what the song is about. It's about me feeling trapped and she feeling trapped on 2 different things, but like that feeling put into a song. So I think, and then the last song, Used to, is about, kind of growing up and finishing and graduating college and trying to kind of move on from all of this stuff.
Do you feel like you've kind of settled in terms of how you want your music to sound, or are you still trying new things?
Oh, I'll always be trying new things. Um, yeah, definitely. The way I have kind of come into music was, as I said, I started producing when I was 14. I'm 22 now, but I haven't been songwriting for that long. I've been writing songs for like 2 or 3 years. And the first good songs I wrote were for this album, in my opinion. So I think that as a producer, love doing different sounds and hate being put into a box. The worst thing is where I listen to an album and every song sounds the same. I hate that. I love when there's thematic elements throughout an album, but things really change up. And I think that kind of happened with my album to an extent. Like, there's not like a jazz song on my album. There's definitely a lane that it's in, but it's a pretty large lane. Like, Can't Go Home is an EDM hip hop blues song, which I honestly don't think anyone has done before, to be completely honest. And then Take a Drive is like pretty much a pop song, and Goodbye is a ballad, and Enemy is a pop song with like alternative production, and Cross Lines kind of sounds like a Weekend song. And there's a lot of different. Oh, and I Don't Want to Know is very Kanye-y. There's just a lot of different influences and ideas, but the production to me still somewhat follows. And the production and the writing is basically all pop songwriting, but the production kind of all falls into the lanes of like hip hop, pop, EDM, which is what you were saying. But like kind of not generic hip hop, pop, EDM, hopefully a little bit different and new. So I think that, I mean, obviously I think that's cool. So that's cooler to me than staying in one place by a long shot.
For the songs that are more of a blend of styles, how do you bring that all together?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So Can't Go Home at its heart is a blues song with hip hop and EDM production on it, I guess. So the bass line is kind of blues, and then I'm producing it in a different way than people generally produce a blues song. I think if something works, you just know it works. And if something doesn't work, it feels wrong. I think that's all based on gut instinct and how the song feels to you. I don't think there's any like way I could talk about how something comes together like that. I think that's just, if it feels good, it's good. And Can't Go Home, I didn't realize it was a blues song until I had this realization, because I was like, wait, if this had like bluesy guitar on it, this would be really cool. And then I got my friend to play guitar for like 6 hours or something, and then spent 3 days in Pro Tools splicing together different parts in different places to make it sound like it was supposed to be played throughout the whole song, even though he was kind of like playing random things in different parts. That took a lot of work. And then I was like, oh, this is a blues song. And then that informed how I continued to make the song, because I understood more how it should sound and what it should be. Versus initially I didn't think about it being a blues song.
All right, man. So, what is next for you? I mean, you're moving to LA, obviously looking to make some more connections out there, but what else do you have in mind?
Yeah. So I think it's going to be, what's next is to probably try to get a job in the music industry. And from the inside, one, get experience in the music, more experience in the music industry, and kind of work my way up in kind of I think a different way than most people try to do it, which is like from the inside of a music industry company and making contacts that way. So that's kind of the plan. I think it's going to take some time for people to catch on to my music, but I think when they do, it's going to be great.
Oh, no doubt, man. No doubt. All right, Joseph. Well, thank you much for joining me, man. Appreciate this. Before we wrap this up, where do folks go to learn more about you and check out your work?
Yeah. So the best place to go is to follow me on Instagram, which is Joseph Mossbridge. That's my name. It's also my Spotify. My last name is spelled weirdly, like moss on the ground, bridge on the water. That's how I say it to people when I'm talking on the phone. Yeah, that's the best place. That's where I like post about new music and whatever I'm up to.
Hi, this is singer Kate Eppers, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout.
And that'll bring this episode to a close. You can follow the show on Facebook under Citywide Blackout and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. Get at me at citywidemax@yahoo.com and check the show out wherever you find podcasts, as well as every Saturday at 10 p.m. on Boston Free Radio. To close things out, we've got the song Goodbye from Joseph's debut album, which looks like the major move he made 2 years ago. That's all for now, and I'll see you next time.
Packing up, closing up one last time. Like we're breaking up, doors are shut, keys not mine. Memories of you and me left inside. The rearview mirror disappeared, now it's quiet. Driving up the 5, thinking about the rest of my life. Leaving you behind, hitting pause until it's our time. Driving up the 5, endless desert, you're on my mind. Leaving me behind, wish I was on the other side. Say goodbye to LA, it has always been a place in the valley, but we're high in the hills, I wanna die. Say goodbye to LA, I'll be coming back someday. In the valley, but we're high in the hills, I wanna die. Take a walk, picture what happens next. I can find answers in any step. I'm just lost, trying hard to accept. Leaving you, wishing I hadn't left. Driving up the 5, thinking about the rest of my life. Leaving you behind, hitting pause until it's our time. Driving up the 5, endless desert, you're on my mind. Leaving me behind, wish I was on the other side. Goodbye to LA, it has always been a place in the valley, but we're high in the hills, I wanna die. Say goodbye to LA, I'll be coming back someday. In the valley, but we're high in the hills, I wanna die. I am longing, picturing, imagining how it could be different. Yeah, now I'm just missing when we were thriving, climbing, rising. I'm pushed to my limits, so when will this be finished? Say goodbye to LA, it has always been a place in the valley, but we're high in the hills, I want